Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Unprofessional Entrepreneur. I am so excited because this is the season 3 finale. I am about to disappear to get married, and I don't think I'm having a honeymoon as of July, so there will be no honeymoon. But I have people flying in from around the world to the south of France to my wedding. If you do actively follow me on social media, I've already disappeared. This is scheduled in advance. But I wanted to go out with a little bit of a bang before we head into the podcast swaps. So, following this episode, in the month of September, I'm going to be releasing 4 different interviews that I did on other people's podcasts. It's going to be interesting. I'm interested to see how you all enjoy listening to that because it's kind of 2 parts. I hope to drive traffic back to my friends so that you go listen to their podcast. But also, I think it'll be interesting to hear me be interviewed, right? Because I always talk about content repurposing from my point of view. I talk about questions that people ask me and like what I'm actively talking about with my community, my audience. And so these interviews are from other people's perspectives. It's other hosts, other communities questions about content repurposing, and we address it from so many different angles in all of these interviews. And so I'm excited for you to see these, listen to these when they start dropping in September. They will continue with my regular schedule of Thursdays for new episodes. So keep your eyes peeled and you won't have to miss hearing my voice, even though I'm not present. But today we are going to do kind of a big old roundup. I want to talk about the reflections that I made when July started. So it's like a month later when I record this, but it's like my 6-month recap for 2024. I also want to talk about the preparations that I did to be able to take a month off in business while still having my agency run, while still making money, while still being able to sell the remix and everything that is my business. So let's start with the 6-month recap. What went well and what needs work for the first 6 months from 2024? What went well was Threads, to be completely honest. I would say that 75% of my clients are coming from that platform, and it's the only thing that's actually growing my Instagram. If you haven't checked out my Instagram, I turned the agency account, Feli Day Studio, into a 9 grid. So that's a static grid. I don't post to that account anymore. I do post podcast snippets and collaborations and stories on my personal account, Feli Day, but I'm pretty much only on Instagram for the DMs now. All my leads, all my conversations are originating from Threads, and I basically just close them in the DMs on Instagram. Another thing that has gone really well, and on that note, if you are someone who's looking to use Threads more, go back through my episodes. I believe it's 79 is the episode I recorded about the 4 things I do on Threads to generate consistent leads. And next, in what went really well, is my collaborations. My email list, literally in the month of July, has grown 100 followers because of collaborations that I've done. I just did a bundle and a summit, and I actually have one that I paid for coming up I think next week. So like it'll be the last week of July. It'll have already come out by the time you're listening to this, but I am fully planning to do a recap episode of Pain for a collaboration in season 4 of the Unprofessional Entrepreneur. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Let me know if you have any questions about Pain for collaborations. I paid to join Cubicle to CEO's freebie promotion. I can't remember what her catchy name for it is, but essentially she will promote my freebie to her email list. She'll make a blog post about it. She'll share it on her Instagram stories. So yeah, I'm excited to see how that goes. Essentially, it's like my test run in the new email sequence for the private podcast, turn 1 into 10. But also what I could be expecting in terms of paid ads, in terms of numbers, and in terms of conversions. That's what I'm really watching, is to see conversions, see people who stay on my email list after getting the freebie, and then people who upgrade, upsell, who buy the remix from that. So collaborations have been doing really well. My email list has grown about 150 followers since I purged it in February when I moved lists. And yeah, I didn't write about this. I'm like going off my notes. But another thing that went really well was my planning. I kind of had like big projects set for each month of this year because I knew that I was taking this month off, this time off since last year. I knew my wedding was going to be this date. People were coming, that I was going to need time off. I did think it was going to be that I needed September off because I was going to go on a honeymoon, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, everything that I have been working towards up till now, I feel like I am coasting into my month vacation instead of needing to have a bunch of stuff that I need to get done. I feel like everything is basically in place already. I made a Loom training for my VA to take over the remix sales. I had to schedule emails and these podcast episodes. I also scheduled blog posts, but other than that, like everything is really taken care of, and I have leads kind of locked in for when I'm back from vacation, and there's no worries or stress on my part for this vacation, which I feel like a year ago I wouldn't have been able to take this vacation feeling as relaxed as I am, or I wouldn't have been able to take a vacation and still made money, I think is the real thought. I think before I would have taken vacation and just known that I wasn't going to make any money while I was gone because I wasn't there to be doing. And now I've built my agency to the point where I don't do the doing, I do the marketing, but my marketing is starting to reach into that long form SEO longevity phase where clients are still coming to me months after I've created the content. And that's kind of the ultimate goal, right? All right, so what needs work? What needs work was my hard sales effort, or is my hard sales effort. If you haven't listened to that episode, I do have an episode about hard versus soft sales. I don't know my episode number, so please just scroll. It's maybe in the 80s. It's not far back from this episode. But that episode goes over what I mean by hard sales. Essentially, I mean like actually asking for the sale versus just putting out content talking about the offers, right? That's what I consider hard sales, soft sales being like the content that just is like, oh, I have this offer, or you don't actually ask people, you need to buy this, you should buy this, or here's what it is, why you should buy it. I did like some sales-based emails being like, we have space in the agency. Are you interested? I know you expressed interest before, right? So my hard sales efforts require work. I have a Airtable base of leads with like updated notes of where everyone's at. So my hope is when I come back in September that I kind of focus more on that and anyone who came in while I was away, versus constantly looking for new. I want to work more on selling to my email list, nurturing the leads that have expressed interest, because I have had a lot of people say to me that they want like September, end of Q3, Q4 starts for done for you content. So that's kind of something that I want to be more intentional about, is getting into those DMs again and getting back on those emails and following up with the people versus letting them come to me. Another thing that didn't go so well and definitely needed improvement, but I feel like we've gotten there over the last month, was my podcast strategy. I was not in love with podcasting this year. I feel like I came back in February really excited to bring the podcast back, but as soon as I brought it back, I kind of hit a wall of not knowing what to talk about, not feeling excited by any of the topics that I wanted to talk about, just kind of feeling lost in my strategy. I could never get ahead in my recordings because I could never come up with things. And it was a personal block. I know I have 100 different things that I could talk about podcast wise, but it was just personal that I just couldn't get into it. And it's funny because I actually had a conversation yesterday with someone I used to be in a program with, and that program burnt me out of emails. I know a lot of people who have a hate relationship with emails because of that program, because of the teaching in that program. It was just too masculine, too like my way or the highway. And I only now as well am getting back into writing proper sales emails. And I actually, with the emails that I've scheduled to go out while I'm gone, I have a weekly newsletter going out, and they do have sales pitches in them. And I ended up repurposing old emails that I wrote while I was in that program. And reading those old emails, I was like, this isn't my tone of voice. This is so like, like, I don't know how else to describe it. Like, it's like blocky. It's like, if you, then you, will you, now you, like, it's very just rigid and like followed. It's like a script without being a script almost. Anyways, I rewrote them so that they flowed naturally, so that they actually sounded like my tone of voice and were updated to my current voice and offers. But it's funny because I feel like we can go through these phases where we're totally burnt out of a type of content creation. And that's why I don't believe there's only one core content for you. Personally, me right now, Threads is my core content. I have podcasts that are repurposed threads right now coming out. And I have emails that started as a thread. I have carousels that started as a thread, so it's like Threads is mine. But last year it was my podcast. And it became my podcast after I burned myself out from emails, So it's like I definitely had some like soul searching to do with content creation for myself this year. I feel like I've gotten better at client content creation and like knowing what I want from that. But when it came to my own content this year, like that was definitely a struggle for me. In full transparency, I would say, or I would not, I would say I've done the math. My income is down 30% from what it was last year. So I'm not making anywhere near as much money as I did last year. But at the same time, marketing has never felt easier. And the clients I work with are a dream. They keep coming in without me putting in any effort. They don't need convincing. They just click to buy. And I love it. And so that's where, like I mentioned before, I want to come back in September, go hard on the hard sales tasks, and bring in more people for the done for you side of the business. I'm also raising the rates for the remix. Basically, as soon as this comes out, they're about to raise. So if you wanted a remix at the original rate, buy. Though I will say, if you are a podcast listener, you can use the code podcast on the remix and you'll get 10% off. That's only for podcast listeners. Please don't share it with other people. But if you were considering the remix and the idea that the rate is going up about exactly $150, don't worry. As a podcast listener, you can get 10% off. But yeah, so that's what worked, what went well in the first half of the year. Now I want to talk about what I did to get to where I am now. Like I mentioned before, I did a lot of planning. I had a lot of projects in the first few months of the year to get me to this point. And originally my thought was that I was going to hire like an agency manager or something to take over for me. But honestly, the way I've structured my agency, I really don't do enough to hire a whole position. So I ended up training my VA in the few tasks that I do to take over for me. So what is it? January, I created the podcast, the private podcast, launched it in February. So that was getting new people onto my email list, getting that set up. What did I do? February, March, I moved platforms. I moved from Kartra and Dubsado to Moxie and ConvertKit. So that was another big behind the scenes project to make sure that things were running smoothly for my business, for my marketing, for my clients. Getting Moxie set up, there was definitely a learning curve, though I do recommend it over Dubsado. It has, it's honestly, at the end of the day, it's cheaper. It has really similar features without the blocky, confusing setup that is Dubsado. And like, I'm not a designer. I'll say that till I'm blue in the face. I don't care about aesthetics. And so Moxie, it's nothing fancy. I'm sure you can make it fancy if you are a designer, but it works for me with what it is. I'm trying to think of April, May, and June. Q2. Q2, I think my focus was more on lead generation, on bringing in clients and hot leads so that my agency would be booked out when I would go on vacation. And honestly, it paid off. I started getting back into collaborations heavily. That's when honestly my email list wasn't growing at that time, but my threads was growing and my Instagram was growing. And I started getting 3 or more remixes a month. Before I was getting about 1 remix a month, right? So I tripled my one-off clients and started bringing in new done for you clients through the remix and also through custom packages. I went back to my roots essentially and went back to custom packages because I don't love only having one package. I talked about this in hiring a Pinterest manager. Wow, I'm just referencing all the podcast episodes. Hiring a Pinterest manager, I want to say that was episode 89. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, when I was hiring a Pinterest manager, I everyone was like one package, $1,000 a month, no other options. And that's what I have. And I started saying to people, this is our standard, our signature package. But if you know what you want, if you know the exact deliverables you want, I'll give you a quote. Like if you're going to tell me I only want 4 blog posts a month, that's all I need from you, I will give you a custom quote. If you only want B-roll videos and you want like 30 B-roll videos, yeah, the Repurposing Unlimited is good for you. But if you only want like, I don't know, 8 social media captions and 4 emails, Repurposing Unlimited is a little bit too robust for you, right? Like we're giving you more content than that. And I don't want you to be drowning in content or overwhelmed or feel like it's too much for you. I want you to be able to invest at what you need. And so that's where I went back to offering custom packages and I started signing more clients into the agency as well. But yeah, so wow, I lost my train of thought. My content writer does the remixes for me now. She also does the content for the agency. My VA is stepping into my position, which is essentially just making sure that everything gets set up in Asana properly and that everything is communicated and passed over to the content writer. If there are videos, I am currently the video editor. I just didn't love my previous video editor. I haven't replaced her yet. But so if there are any videos, I will be back before the 15th of September to get those done. But other than that, I have like literally nothing on my plate. And then yeah, so that's my agency essentially like taken care of. And let's talk about my marketing plan. So I mentioned before, these podcast episodes have all been scheduled in advance the month of August, as well as all the email announcements for the podcast. I also scheduled out weekly newsletters, which I mentioned before. Those are all repurposed from previous emails. Like in my defense, those previous emails are like 3-4 years old. Like I said before, I've just had a total falling out with email marketing and I haven't been writing anything worth repurposing to my list in a minute. So I'm excited to see how my audience reacts to the new emails. I expect unsubscribes, to be honest, but I also expect inquiries from these emails that I've got coming out. Yeah, when you're listening, they've already started going out. I also, as you know, have hired a Pinterest manager, and I've been with my VA working to have blog posts go out every week on my website. These blog posts are all repurposed from my podcast. Originally, I didn't want to do this type of blog posts. I only wanted to do blog posts that were like proper blog posts with SEO keywords, blah, 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 full write-ups. And it just became unrealistic. Like last summer, I released 2 podcast episodes a week. I was doing Tuesday, Thursday. Tuesdays were interviews, Thursdays were solo episodes. And it became so unrealistic for me to actually write a full like 1,000-word blog post on every single episode that I think I had like 5 repurposed episodes up on my blog and 80 podcast episodes, right? So that is something that I worked with my VA in May and June, I believe we did that project. That's another project I forgot about. And June, I hired a Pinterest manager. to start my Pinterest. And I know like it's literally the dead season for Pinterest right now, but I'm excited to see come fall, come back to school and all of that. Obviously, I'm not back to school niche, I'm not DIY, I'm not mom niche, but I'm excited once the traffic starts to ramp back up on Pinterest in time for the holidays and all that to see how my analytics start showing, how my website traffic goes, and if people are like joining my private podcast or signing up for my email list, all of that. There's so many analytics to check. Another big strategy that I have in the works while I'm away is collaborations. Like I mentioned, that was like probably one of the best things I did for myself in 2024 outside of Threads was get back into collaborations. I have been doing podcasts so frequently, like almost one a week. And I have, I think, 3 or 4 that are coming out while I'm away. The Business First podcast, the Thought Leadership podcast, and there's one I'm forgetting. I'm also in a bundle during that time. Not a bundle, a summit. I'm in a summit during that time, so emails will be all scheduled accordingly. And I'm excited to come back and see how my email list is looking from these collaborations. The summit and the podcast are, of course, content repurposing focused. The summit that I did before was a podcast one, and I actually didn't do content repurposing focus. I did it about guesting on podcasts. So it was a different lead magnet. I'm interested to see how those people react to my repurposing emails because it's not really what they originally came to me thinking about. They came to me thinking about like more mentorship, really. So I'm interested to see how my email list reacts to all of this. And then I want to talk about what I'm excited for. Obviously, I'm excited for my wedding. Obviously. So if you're listening to this and September 7th hasn't passed, feel free to message me on Instagram and say congratulations because I'll be walking down the aisle, or maybe I already will have because most of you are in America and I am in France. 6 hours ahead from Eastern Standard Time. I'm also excited to see how it goes with my VA running like the remix and the agency, because these SOPs I can then put in place for when I am ready to bring on a agency manager. And I'm just excited to see like my agency run without me. I was thinking about it today. I have a passion project in mind that's like unprofessional entrepreneur focused, that if all goes well with my wedding, I can totally see me coming back and like stepping out more from my agency. Maybe I'll get to the point where I'm ready to hire someone else to do the marketing. Maybe I'll get to the point where I'm ready for someone else to do the sales calls. I'd love someone else to do the sales calls. It's not my thing. I also am excited to see friends and family. I have so many people coming that I haven't seen since I was in Canada in April, but I also have people coming that I haven't seen in years. My best friend is coming from England. He's Irish. We used to work together when I was 19. Last time I saw him was his wedding in 2018. I also have my friend coming from Germany. She was an exchange student when I was 15, and we've both been back and forth to each other's houses over the years. I think I haven't seen her since I was in Germany in 2014. No, she came to me when I was in Alberta in 2015. So I think we haven't seen each other since then. So that's exciting. I think most other people I've seen in the last, or at least in 2023. Oh, my mom's best friend. I haven't seen her since I was 24, since 2014 when I went and stayed with her in England. She is hilarious. I love her. Sally English is what we call her because she's English. It's like my mom's always like, that's not her name. I'm also really excited because I'm going to visit Philadelphia for the first time. I'm going to Right Hand Glam's wedding in October. October 14th is her wedding date. So I will be in Philadelphia for the wedding. And the Frenchman is coming with me. I have no idea what he's going to get off, but I'm hoping we can like make a trip to New York. He's never been to the East Coast of the US. He's only been to Oregon. So that's exciting. I'm excited to see how that goes out. And I'm also just so excited to see how my business goes without me. Like I feel like this whole year I've been working towards having a business that's like able to run without me in it. Like, big goal is to have the agency be able to be sold. Um, the big goal is to sell the agency in 5 years. So having me out of it now is already so exciting. And it just gives me more and more time to focus on growing, on hiring new team members as we get more clients, and continuing to like finesse all these SOPs so that we are desirable to potential buyers. Also, 2025 goal is to expand into potentially podcasting, and become like a full service podcast repurposing agency. We will see. I'm not committed to podcasting. Someone also mentioned to me about like doing repurposing and Pinterest, but I think I would prefer podcasting, obviously, because like, I love podcasting. But I'm going to wrap it up there. This is a long episode for me. If you listened all the way through, thank you so much. I feel like I rambled a lot. I hope you learned something. I hope that you get to take a vacation yourself. I would say that after this vacation, I'm not going to need a full year of lead up to take a vacation. My business is now set up for me to take vacations. Like, obviously, I'm going to go to Philly in October and I'll be offline again, but for a much shorter amount of time. But yeah, so if you're someone who's like looking to take vacation, just know that it's totally possible. You might need to put some planning in beforehand. Like, I'm hoping everything I've planned can then translate to when I go on maternity leave in 2025, when I get pregnant, if I get pregnant, whenever I get pregnant. But yeah, so that's it from me. That's it from season 3. That's it from the Unprofessional Entrepreneur until further notice. I want to say thank you for listening all the way through, for being here for all these seasons. It's kind of a big deal, to almost be at 100 episodes on the podcast. Kind of a big deal considering most people don't hit 10 episodes. But I'm going to love you and leave you for the last time in season 3. And I will catch you when I catch you next. And as always, don't forget to stay unprofessional. Where's my mouse?